Welcome, everybody. So I'm Mike Letchin. I'm a principal technologist here at Cohesity. And I'm joined by my good friend, Shresh. So tell them who you are here. What do you do for Cohesity?
Absolutely. So I'm Shresh Agnihotri. I'm a member of technical staff here at Cohesity, and I look after APIs and all our integrations, which include SDKs and ready-to-use integrations, which we're going to talk about today.
So I know when we start talking APIs, there's a lot of different things but you think of APIs and you think of code.
Correct.
You don't think of a whiteboard. So I think we're going to have to do this a little bit different and kind of try to talk through this and give some examples along the way.
Absolutely.
Maybe keep this interesting for everyone.
Absolutely.
So I think when we dig into it, the first thing, I'll kind of start over on that side. We've got a CLI. Now, I don't think most people think of a CLI and API.
Right.
You're used to Red Hat and your different Linux things, and that's when you think CLI on it.
Right.
That's not really API driven. So what do we do that's API driven for our CLI?
Right. So one priority for Cohesity right from the day one had been that we wanted to build an API-driven architecture and an API-driven platform. So everything that includes our UI as well as our CLI is all built on top of APIs. So we get to use all that goodness in our CLIs and UIs, and we are the biggest consumers of our own APIs.
So that's awesome. Then from everything from the UI around the appliance. But then we think about the APIs, and it's how the developers are going to use it. So I think that's where we get into the SDK side of things. And I noticed we've got a little extra S there. So do we have multiple SDKs that people can use that API for?
Absolutely. So we expose all the goodness of our platform using APIs, and sometimes it's hard for the end users to consume it using the raw APIs. So we make it a point to make it easier for our developers to use these APIs. And we do that using our SDKs. So we have SDKs available in PowerShell, Python, as well as Go. And you can use our SDKs in any of these languages, and you can manage our platform very easily. So as a platform, we are extremely easy to manage.
Yeah, I think that easy to manage is really where that first side comes in. Right away, we get that. But, a lot of people say that they've got all these languages that they can work on, and they've got SDKs that we can do different things.
Correct.
But I don't think we can just say that on here. I think we probably need to show something for that, right?
Absolutely.
So we have a little something we can show with one of our SDKs?
Yeah, so one of the most popular SDKs is the PowerShell toolkit that we have. It has more than 1,500 downloads on PowerShell Gallery. And what we are going to show is a little snippet of a very common use case, which is if you have if you have a lot of NAS shares or SMB shares, and let's say you want to protect them, the first step is to register them with the Cohesity data platform. So we're going to see a demo which will do that in a snap.
Okay, let's get into that right now then. We'll see that, and then we'll talk about some more API in a minute.
Absolutely. Let's go for it. So let's say you got all those SMB shares put down in a file. And in this case, we have about 100 shares that we want to register with Cohesity. And then here we have the script, which you will use. It accepts the Cohesity cluster name and the file name in which we have the shares. And then it's as easy as this to just run the script. Once you execute the script, it's going to prompt for the Cohesity cluster credentials. Once those are entered, we can enter the credentials for the SMB shares. And as soon as you do that, you'll see that the script will start registering those shares one by one. And a task which typically would take hours to do manually is done in a few seconds.
With a single one-line piece of code.
Absolutely. And at this point, we can go back to the Cohesity UI and check that all those 100 shares are registered. And as you can see, they're all there.
So instead of taking a ton of time, we just did that with one line.
Absolutely.
And a text file.
Isn't that cool?
Yep. So now, if we're looking at outside of that, that's great for developers. Developers are going to write using an SDK. But let's jump over the other side of our little diagram here. I think people look at it and go, well, that's great, but how are you really integrating with it? How do you use it? And I think the apps and Helios both kind of give a good bit on that. So tell me a little bit about how the apps are really, is there a story behind that? What do people use the apps that's API integrated? Just hear apps, it's not API integrated.
Well, that's not correct. Apps do make use of APIs very heavily. So if you go to developer.cohesity.com, you'll see that we have two SDKs published over there. One is the management SDK, which allows you to call operations on the Cohesity side. And the other SDK is the app SDK. And that really allows you to expose or get access to the data stored on the Cohesity data platform. And combining the power of the management SDK and the app SDK, you can really do wonderful things. Some examples are antivirus apps, which scan your data.
Okay.
Some of them are orchestration-related apps. So the possibilities are really endless.
So you could do anything with these apps from than the antivirus. Maybe it's analytics that you're testing on.
Absolutely.
You're really utilizing the backup.
We are.
Extending what we can do. So we've got some easy to manage, easy to extend right away.
Absolutely.
But now, realistically, an API is great for developers. I'm not a developer in all reality. But we've got some integrations that we've already got. And you mentioned the developers.cohesity.com, that there's some things with that. But before we dig into, and I think we'll show that at the end on it, but what are these ready-to-use integrations? I mean, is that something that any admin or engineer can use? They don't necessarily need to know the API, but it can help them out?
Absolutely, that's the idea. So some of our customers do not really want to write their own toolkits or scripts on top of our APIs. And for those customers, we provide ready-to-use integrations. These are turnkey workflows which integrate with the tools that they're using today, such as ServiceNow, or it could be vRealize Automation, or it could be vCloud Director. And we provide plugins or add-ons which fit right into these tools, and they can use our turnkey workflows to start using these products from day one without a single line of code change.
So I think that's really cool. You look at, especially get a VMware admin that wants is figuring out VRO or VRA or whatever, and they're working through the different solutions. I think it would be kind of cool to be able to show them how we integrate in with the API with VRO. I mean, we showed them with, if you're a developer, why don't we show that ready to use, you think?
Yeah, absolutely, we can do that. So what we're going to see is, so we automate the entire VM lifecycle, right from the point where the VM is provisioned till the point it's uncommissioned. So what we're going to see is a deployment of a VM and see how it gets protected as soon as it's provisioned.
Oh, so that's pretty awesome. Right away, you're gonna get all that advantage.
Absolutely.
Of not only the VMware capability, the flexibility, the software defined, but then also the software defined on our disaster recovery side and the automation that being API driven really brings and allows us to do. So we get to actually then extend and integrate. So now we've got an easy management, easy extension, and an easy integration point. So,
as I said, our platform is easy to manage, easy to extend, and easy to integrate with.
So let's go check out that demo then.
Let's get into the demo. So here I am logging into the vRealize Automation as a tenant called Acme and logging in as Acme user. As soon as you log in, you'll see that all the self-service workflows exposed by Cohesity are available in here in the self-service catalog. And this includes the entire VM lifecycle. Let's go ahead and deploy a VM. During the deployment workflow, you can select the Cohesity cluster and the protection job name based on the SLA that you desire. In this case, I'm choosing Acme Bronze and start the deployment. Now that begins the deployment in vRealize console. And this takes a bit of time. Here we are checking on the Cohesity side that it's only protecting one VM at this point. As soon as this VM is provisioned, we'll see, if we go back to the Cohesity UI, that the newly provisioned VM will also become part of that protection job. So we have just sped up the deployment process in this video to save some time. But as you can see, the VM is provisioned right now. It's turning on. And if we go back to the Cohesity UI and hit refresh, the VM should show up here.
So we just basically did, any user could do, any VMware user, all they have to do is tie into it, add that recipe, and now they're able to deploy the VM and protect it right away.
Absolutely, and it's that easy because it hooks right into the deployment workflow.
Great. So that was awesome. Now that we see how quickly we can do that, it becomes self-service for that and really allows administrators, engineers to do things. I think that gives you truly that idea of really extending the whole platform using the API and how an API can not just be the foundation of the product, but also the foundation of your integration points, the foundation of how you use it, whether you're a developer, whether you're an admin, there's so much more capability. And we really try to work with our customers and our partners to make that expand. And I think as the last thing they'll probably see here is going to be what you're going to get if you go to developer.cohesity.com. And I think as we look at this last screen, that's what you're looking at. Check out the recipes. Check out what you can do with some of these integrations and really kind of dig into the API. And that's what we're hoping that everyone gets out of this, and they get to learn a little bit about the API and how Cohesity really does make it easy to manage, easy to extend, and easy to integrate. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.